start to see like, oh, actually there are more people that I can connect with when I'm bringing that intention.
Yeah. This isn't, I guess, the example that I was thinking of the meet cute mindset, but I thought, so I wanted to ask you guys, so I maintain to her, like, if I see someone hot, like, I will absolutely be going up to them. There's, like, 100, even if there's a wedding band, I will go up to them. Like, I am somebody that, so I'm like, I'm very meet cute mindset, and she said, no, you're just kind of aggressive. And so I'll throw this out to you. I was telling her the other day, I was kicking myself because I go, I have this syndrome where I only buy enough groceries for one day. It's just the way I live. And so I go to the grocery store every single day. And I was at Sprouts and I saw this guy. He was so my type that the first thought I had was, did I already date this guy? And that was legitimately what I thought. And I just started I was following him around the grocery store, and I looked in my, for me, I came from the gym, I looked really bad. Like, this is not your best showing. Not that anyone looks great going to Sprouts, but this is a particularly off day for me. But anyways, I'm still shit, because I date in scarcity, and I'm like, he's exactly the height I like, he's got the look, he's too young for me, the whole thing, everything that I would want. And so I said to her, I was trying to prove how meet cute mindset I am, this is me, I'm at the grocery store, and I found a guy, and I'm gonna go up to him. And so first I just tried to open up conversation, and so I was like, oh, there was one thing of hard-boiled eggs left. I also don't cook, so I buy hard-boiled eggs every time. So I was buying these, and so I go, oh, are you gonna buy this? He doesn't even make eye contact, he's just no. And then he just keeps it moving. And then I begin to trail him for 30 minutes, and I have no idea what my in is gonna be, and I'm just kind of well, shit, I need to say something, I should do something. Now time's running out, now he's at the cash register, he's making conversation with the cashier, and I don't end up saying anything, and I was kicking myself. So she said to me, what would you have said? And then I said, you're my type, are you single? Would you like to get a drink? And she's like, what did you say?
I said, with love. Do not be that, the point of not being so aggressive is first of all, even just the idea of going up to someone and saying, you're my type, it's what does that have to do with me? You know what I mean? Oh, I'm supposed to be you like me because I'm your type.
You're my type.
It's a little bit making it about you, right? Actually, even though it might seem oh, I'm making it about this other person by telling them they're my type, but you're saying, no, you're my type, therefore we should go out on a date.
Yeah.
And so it's that's a little aggressive and a little bit putting the focus on you more than the other person. And also just start a conversation, right? And that's what, because I said in general, I tell people, just say something, right? It doesn't matter what you say. There's a whole chapter in the book on flirting, which is one of my favorite topics. And there's different, styles of flirting, there's different levels of flirting and that are appropriate at different times, right? The way that you flirt with somebody you've been in a relationship with for 5 years, and the way you flirt with somebody in line at the grocery store is probably going to be different, right? But one of the best ways is just to spark some connection, and just to spark. I call it attentiveness. Is that's a very foundational flirting style, which is just that sense of oh, you're so interesting. Just noticing something in somebody that makes them that they can feel that you're actually oh, you're standing out to me in some way, and then just see what happens versus being but that's the scarcity of I see this person that I'm attracted to, so I have to make it happen. And it's actually, what happens if you relax and actually just allow what is meant to unfold more organically?
What happened?
What
happened is that now I'm not dating this guy, and every time I go to Sprouts, I'm
what do you think would have happened if you said to him, you're my type and we need to go on a date?
Maybe he would say yes.
Okay. but also,
Bailey, what you got?
Okay, so I have a question. So from when you were on Corinne's podcast, I started doing the meet cute, when I would go out and everything.
Amazing.
And he may not necessarily be my type, right? But
you're just practicing
conversation and talking. The conversion rate is 0. My question, my question around this is, you go out, you're cute, and you are engaging in conversation, and you're asking them interesting stuff, and conversation's going on.
Yeah.
It's not just a oh hi in the aisle. It's sometimes a 30-minute conversation. And like, and I've introduced myself, like put my name out there, right? Like I'm obviously interested in you, right? And I feel like I can't do all of the work and also be like, and here's my number, and
Right.
can we go to dinner on Tuesday?
Yes.
And like, I'm like, where is that give and take of like, because I feel like if I'm putting that effort in and I'm opening up to show you that I'm receptive to you, and then that doesn't, I'm like, I can't do all the work.
You can't do all the work. It's true. I mean, listen, first of all, I think,
Well,
I'm curious to know how, because would you describe yourself as a generally outgoing person who
Yeah.
can talk to anyone?
Yeah.
Okay,
Very.
so,
Very.
so actually, this paradoxically, sometimes people who are more extroverted actually have a little bit more trouble in the sense that because you're so extroverted, you kind of like give the same, it doesn't feel special,
It doesn't, okay, yeah.
right? It feels like, oh, I would talk to anybody who was standing here for 30 minutes. Not necessarily like, oh, no, I'm talking to you specifically. I wouldn't be talking to everyone. So
I do give off like a good RBF in between. So I do try to, yeah, it's not always like that open.
yeah. So well, and this goes back to like, so first of all, it is the case that sometimes, you know, these things are not going to convert, right? Like not everybody that you're talking to is going to be available. Not everybody, you know, like not everyone's going to be a match for you, right? However, I would just think about going back to flirting. It's really important, guys. Flirting is really important. Is really starting to figure out how can you start interacting in a way where you're creating a little bit more intrigue and you are bringing actually a little bit more vulnerability to the conversation, so it actually does feel more special. Okay, and also I would say, you know, it's not just you don't say anything or you ask them out and say, here's my card. I'm a really big fan of like putting the ball in their court, right? So giving somebody a chance to ask you out, like you don't have to do it, but you just have to create an opportunity for them to do it, you know? So even saying something like, and this is bold, right? And I call this like one bold move. This is your only bold move. You get to make one bold move and then you gotta chill and actually let the other person show you that they're motivated enough to put in the effort, right? And then you could just say like, it was really great talking to you. If you ever want to continue the conversation, like, let me know.
I like that.
You know, and then you'll see what they say. But you never know. I mean, like Corinne knows this because she was there when it happened. But in my last relationship, my ex who I was with for 7 years, great guy, but you know, things change. And we met on a street corner in LA. And I was walking home and he was about to get in an Uber and we had this very brief interaction. But in that interaction, I had enough information about him because it's like, oh, he's a scientist, he told me where he worked. It was like, I was like, oh, I can find this guy. I'm a very good stalker. And so we had this like nice exchange, but then he got in his Uber and he left. Like, he didn't ask for my number, he didn't do anything like that. And I just had this sense of like, first of all, I'm like, he could be gay, he could be married with six, I literally had no idea. But I also felt like if he was at all interested in me, he was not the type of person who was gonna be like, what's your number? What, you know, like, cause I was like, there was no player vibes here, right? Like, it's just not that kind of energy from him. And so I literally went home and I cyber stalked him and I found him on Twitter and I slid into his DMs and I said, it was nice meeting you. That was all I said. I didn't say hi, I didn't say bye, because I'm like, this is bold and crazy enough. I don't need to make conversation, right? Like, I literally just said it was nice meeting you. And he wound up like writing back right away. He was like, nice meeting you too. And he wound up asking me out to dinner and we were together, you know. So sometimes you do need to give permission, especially if someone is not a player type, to be like, to know that like, you're actually comfortable with that. And that you wouldn't be like, well, just because I'm talking to you doesn't mean I want to go on a date with you, right? So there is a little bit of, I mean, it's a situational thing, right? Like case by case basis, but there's some times where you can kind of feel out, okay, here's my opportunity to be a little bit more bold. Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah,
I love
you guys
that.
can interrupt anytime.
Yeah, please. This is a.
So I also, in line with this, I like your no bad dates strategy. So will you talk a little bit about that? Because I've had some bad dates.
Yes. Well, Corinne. So I definitely realized at some point after some years of doing this work, whenever anyone would tell me about a really terrible date, 99.9% of the time, what happened could have been avoided. And it could have been avoided by having better date selection in the first place. So because if you are going out with somebody who is showing you from the beginning that they're selfish, that they're not really interested in who you are, what you think, or how you feel, if they're showing you that they're not going to put in any effort and you're going to have to be the one who keeps all going, why do you think you're going to have a good date? Right? It's just not going to happen. So it's unlikely to happen, right? And so no bad dates is basically this framework that I teach my clients to just help avoid being in these situations. So it starts with the date selection, who are you going out on this date with in the first place? Is this somebody who's really demonstrating they are actually, worth your time, they're putting in the effort and all of that. Number two, how are you dating? So for instance, if you don't drink and they're oh, let's go to this dive bar, which you hate dive bars, don't just say yes and go because you're oh, I want to be agreeable. That's not an environment where you're going to be at your best or feel your most comfortable, right? So just communicating the need of oh, actually, would you mind if we went to blah blah blah, just to just actually ask for what you want and not just say yes, and also paying attention to things and this is something that I discovered for myself years ago, when I would go on dates after work, I was stressed. I would be stressed out. I'd be stressed out about okay, what time is it? I'm calculating in my head how many hours of sleep I'm gonna get. I'm thinking about how much I have to do the next day. And I was I'm not setting myself up to win. So let me not do that anymore. I'm not gonna go on dates when I have to go to work the next day. So just really being more strategic about how can you set yourself up to win and have better dating experiences, because the better and the more productive dating is, the better it feels, the more successful it's going to be.
Yeah. And then the other strategy that she really loves to talk about, which I'm going to give my example, but it's raw, ready, able, and willing, right? The person has to be all three of those things. So the person that I was recently dating he has children he spends 50% of the time with. He has a German Shepherd dog that he has to go home every night to take care of. He's at his grandmother's house every Saturday because she's on hospice. This motherfucker, he was ready, he was willing, he was not able. Not able. That's why he's not here tonight. So I took all this time. I've been seeing him for close to 2 months. I knew all of these factors. They were all right there. It was very clear. And I just kept being well, it's fine. I guess I'll just take Barry. He won't sleep over very often. And so if we can nip that in the bud in the beginning, literally just go, I clearly see this person does not check all three boxes. I need to keep it moving. So I'm trying to get better at that, which arguably I am, because I've dated people for a year knowing those three things and didn't make any headway.
Yes, you are getting better. It's working. My masterpiece is not done, and I'm not giving up.
I hope not. I'm still single.
I am not giving up. You are moving in the right direction. So I think the important thing also to note about this ready, able, willing framework is that, and this is very contrary to how we are taught to date, to the extent that we're taught to date, but someone's readiness for a relationship is independent of you.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that's part of the fairy tale. It's every romantic comedy, this person is totally unavailable and they don't want any commitment, but they're gonna fall in love with me and they're gonna change their mind, and that leads to so much of, so many people hanging on and hanging in with relationships that they're just hoping this person will actually want what they want. And it's not that that can't happen, but you're definitely gambling with your heart, right? And so even just having that conversation with somebody, because I think a lot of people are hesitant to like, be like, oh, okay, so what are you actually looking for? Because it feels like, I'm saying, do you want to be with me? And I like the analogy I use is like if you were in the market to buy a house,
This is very good.
like you wouldn't just like go to houses that you didn't know were for sale and start like looking around and like measuring the windows, like you like for curtains, like it's not like you're like, I know I want to buy this house, but you're just like, okay, I'm sorry, before I start touring, like, is this house actually for sale? Like, it's just something that you would want to know, right? And so, like, literally just, if a person cannot articulate that they're actually ready for a relationship, then they're probably not ready, and that's fine. And you don't have to take that personally, but you do need to listen, right? And the same thing about able, like someone's ability to have time in their lives to actually prioritize another person, to have the emotional capacity to be vulnerable, to be consistent, like those things are independent of you. And when we take things really personally and sometimes like a challenge, like I'm gonna make this unavailable person, be available, I'm gonna make this person want me, it's like, first of all, you're not really honoring yourself enough. Like you're not really valuing your own needs, because you're like, I'm willing to put what I need totally on the back burner and try to convince this other person to give it to me, but you're not even giving it to yourself, right? And then the willingness, that's when like, okay, is this person actually putting in the effort to get to know you, to move things forward, to like actually build something with you? And it can be really confusing when someone says, yeah, I'm ready for a relationship, and then they are putting in effort, but the ability is like not there. So that's why I say you really want to, it eliminates so much confusion in dating when you can just be like, oh, okay, they like me, they want to hang out with me, why wouldn't they, right? You're amazing, but just because they want to spend time with you doesn't mean that you're on the same page romantically.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like this one that I'm going to bring up, so I always feel like, this is my own take on what she's about to tell you, but so her mantra is rejection isn't real. And I've always come at it from like, so I have very differing views than her. Like, I prefer that you ghost me. Please do not send a message about all of my deficits and why you didn't want it to work. Like, I'll sell a narrative in my head. Oh, he was shot and killed by the Colombian mafia. I don't know. That's what happened there. Like, I actually don't want the truth at all. So for me, rejection isn't real because I'm fucking delusional. But she has a different take on that.
Hilarious. Corinne is the only person who wants to be ghosted. Literally the only one. So actually, by the way, I do a little bit agree with you, because I don't think, like, if you've been on like 1 or 2 dates with somebody, you do not need to give an explanation as to why you do not want to continue to date them. That is not necessary. Literally not necessary. You can just say, it was really nice meeting you, I don't think we're a match, I wish you luck, like, and move on. And if they're like, but why? Do not tell them why. There's no point. But when I say rejection isn't real, I do not mean that the feeling of being rejected is not real, because obviously we've all experienced it. I've had my heart broken, I've been rejected. I've been the first person voted off of Survivor on 2 different seasons. I'm literally famous.
Yeah, we should tell them.
And Corinne, by the way, is one of the people who voted me out in my second season. Yes. Okay. So I am literally the only person in Survivor history who has this distinction, okay? So I'm the biggest loser in all of Survivor history. So when people tell me, when they're like, oh my God, I swiped on this person and they didn't swipe me back, I feel so rejected. I'm like, okay, until a group of people has sat around and said, we need to vote one person off this island, and they've chosen you twice, I don't want to hear it. Like, no, I'm kidding. I do want to hear it, I'm just kidding.
Just while we're on that topic, because it's so funny, she does a confessional, because it's so audacious. Like, we were talking about this last night, she's like, I moved through life, people like me. Like, she thought the first time it was, a one-off, right? And then, so she gives this confessional, and she goes, if I'm the first person voted out, I will eat this rock. And then, that's like what they used on all the commercial, like the trailers for this. Like, it was, yeah. So she really does
the
know.
number of people who walked up to me and been like, "Did you ever eat that rock?" Anyway, so I get it, y'all. I get it. But the thing is, when it comes to this idea of romantic rejection, first of all, the fear of being rejected is keeping so many people single. Because they do not want to put themselves out there, they don't want to be vulnerable, they don't want to take, and you just, to love and to open yourself up to love, like you are risking pain. It is not, there's no way around that, right? And that's why one of the things that I'm so focused on in the book and in my work is just really helping people to develop the type of relationship with yourself where you know that you can handle it. Right, you can be vulnerable because you know that it is worth it to be vulnerable, and you know that if this doesn't work out, you're going to be okay, right? And you are still your own greatest connection to love, and love is abundant. So there are other people. Yes, okay. Anyway,
She's all.
So when I say rejection isn't real, because I just think, and I've seen so many examples of people just, it's not just, oh, I was in love with this person and we were in a relationship and you know they broke up with me. It's like, you know, people are devastated, literally, like I said, because somebody didn't like them on a dating app, right? And so I really started to realize with my clients, like, the story that people tell themselves that they label as rejection is so powerful, and it's really just an opinion, right? Because, by the way, because I know, because back in the day, before I knew how to date, when there was someone who was interested in me, I used to run away. Right? And so there are plenty of people who could have been like, oh, she rejected me. I didn't reject them, I rejected myself, right? Just out of my own fear. So I just think it's a story that can really hold us back and block us from love. And so just be very careful what you're labeling rejection. Let yourself feel the disappointment without putting that label on it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Like me. Okay, so I love the explanation or the suggestion that you made earlier about the like giving a card or a number or something and saying like it was nice to meet you if you'd like to. I think that that's like a through line. I'm wondering because I've been married for 9 years and I have a handful of beautiful, single, amazing girlfriends. And I don't necessarily, I dated an analog, so I don't necessarily understand. And when I'm talking about like, or when we're talking about heteronormative relationships, I'm like, well, men have become trash in the past 20 years. And then I speak to my sister who's queer, and I'm like, there's something that's just happened in society that's changed the IRL thing.
Yeah.
But there has to be something that's like connectivity between the digital and the analog world. So what would be maybe the top 2 or 3 things that have remained constant between what's happening in today's dating world versus what was happening 10 years ago?
Yeah. Well, I think the confusion and the uncertainty around dating, it feels really acute right now. However, and it is for a few reasons, but dating has always been uncertain. And I think that's something, like in the introduction to the book, I have this like timeline of dating and how we got here, and it starts with the birth of the known universe 13.9 billion years ago. But basically, dating is this idea that we are just like, okay, I'm gonna go out in the world and I'm gonna find my person, and I'm gonna, like that's not how humans have mated for most of human history. So it's only been about 80 years that dating has been a mainstream activity. So, and when dating first started, like during the Industrial Revolution, when single people were moving to cities by themselves for the first time, and so they didn't have their families, you know, there to like tell like this is who you marry, you're marrying this person, like was basically how it normally worked. You know, women used to be arrested for prostitution because you were a woman with a strange man, and that was so scandalous, right? And so I just give that example just to say that dating has always been a reflection of society, and society is always changing. And as our society gets more complex, like the issues get more complex, but there was never really this time that I think a lot of people romanticize where, oh, then everyone just had the love of your, like, no, you married who you were expected to marry, right? If you were queer, you didn't have for most people in this world, you didn't have the privilege of marrying the person that you loved. If you were born a girl and you were married off at the age of 12, you didn't have the privilege of agency in your romantic. So I think the number one thing that I like to just tell, and the reason I talk about this is because it's like, yeah, we are at a place where there's a lot of uncertainty, but you also have more opportunity than ever, and you have more freedom of choice than ever. And yes, with more freedom comes more responsibility for you to figure it out, right? But there is no perfect answer. It's just something that everyone on their own individual love journey needs to figure out how to navigate. This is a very long-winded answer to your question. So that's the first thing. But then also, I think a big problem is that people are really dependent on apps. And a lot of people are equating dating with being on a dating app. And that is not a good thing. And it's not a good thing because if every single person who's on a dating app fell in love tomorrow and deleted that app, like a multi-billion-dollar industry would collapse. So the apps, they need some people to be successful on them because then if it didn't work for anyone, then no one would use them. But for everyone else, like they're happy for you to be on that app for years. And so it's just important to like not give your power away to that and say this is the only way, and to start to be more creative and to be more bold about, okay, how can I? Because it does take an effort in the society where people are on, we're on our phones all the time. It does take more of an effort to connect with people in a different way, but it's worth it. So I'm actually on a mission to get more people to date IRL and to meet people IRL, and that's why I talk so much about like the meet cute mindset and flirting, because those are the tools that help when the serendipity of you crossing paths with somebody who can be a great match with you. Like those are the tools you need to convert that into a connection.
Okay, I have a follow-up.
I love it.
No, please.
Okay, so here's my issue.
Yeah.
Because I want to be a great friend. Right?
Yes.
Is it appropriate for me to approach a man
On behalf of a friend?
on behalf of a friend
Listen.
that I don't
Yes,
know?
do it.
And then
Do
how
it.
do you make that? Because that's the thing, like, how do you make that move without it being like, this is something for, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to approach someone
Yeah.
and make it seem like I'm interested, but
Yeah.
like,
You're gonna explain it really quick. Listen, I used to have to do this because when I was a matchmaker, I used to have to, like, I was on the prowl all the time. Like, anywhere I went, I'd be like, rings, like, and because most of my clients were women who dated men, I had to approach a lot of men about like, just, hey, hello. And so I know that moment, I know what that's like, and you're like, oh, okay, this guy is going to think I'm hitting on him, but I'm about to explain, actually I'm a matchmaker. So just know that it's okay if they think for a moment that you're hitting on them. You know that you're not, and you're about to explain why you're talking to them. So I would just kind of like release that sort of fear, like you're gonna clear it up really quick, right? But also I remember long before I ever was in this industry or had any idea that I would do this for a living, I remember seeing a matchmaker on the Today Show, and this stuck with me. I remember her saying, if people looked out for their friends, I wouldn't have a job.
Ooh, that's so good.
And I really, really remember that. And even as a matchmaker, I would see how many people, because I would just in networking, just going to my friends and being like, hey, do you have any single friends? And they'd be like, no, I don't know anybody. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Yes, you do. And like people they have this like knee-jerk reaction of like, they don't want to get involved. They don't want to be blamed. They don't want that pressure, And it's like, okay, just calm down, right? Do you know somebody who could just be somebody who someone could have a nice conversation with for an hour? Like, don't jump a million steps ahead, So I would encourage you to look out for your friends in that way. I think that if everyone did that, dating would be a lot easier. And I think that, as I said, like, we as humans, this idea of like, it's all on you as an individual to go out and find a partner and make it work all on your own. That's not how human society has evolved. And so I think, what do we need to do now to like, not that we want to go back to being married off when we were 14, we don't want that, but how do we start to make this more of a community effort so people don't feel so alone in their search for love? So do it.
Yes, considering I'm one of the friends you are referring to.
Well, we saw that man, he completely missed him walking the dog.
Okay.
And he was hot.
I know she thinks she's always on the prowl.
I know, I
But
was
she's
like,
not.
what?
If he's not 6'5", she doesn't notice.
He had to be at least 6'2".
I was busy spending that entire walk talking about my current disaster situation. I wasn't looking for new. So another thing that she talks about in the book that I found like very insightful is the difference between self-confidence and love confidence.
Yes.
So I've always, because I genuinely, like when somebody breaks up with me or if, you know, a date, I go on a first date, he doesn't call me for a second, I'm like, this fucking loser. Like, I'm fantastic. Like, I have very high self-confidence, but I have extraordinarily low love confidence.
Yes.
And that contributes to a whole number of problems for me, like in general. We were talking about this person that I dated a few years ago who I was so fucking anxious 100% of the time. For a year, I lived in a
It
state
was horrible. It was horrible.
of constant anxiety. And the only thing that quelled the anxiety was when I got to his house. And then I knew, like, okay, he's still in my life, we're still dating. There was a point, I was telling her, where I had a favorite pair of sneakers that are they've been discontinued, and I never ever left anything at his house. I know Lisa's like, where's this gonna go? I never left anything at his house. And I left these sneakers there. I went for a hike, but I wasn't supposed to be coming back to his house. And I called him somewhat hysterical, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I need to come back to your house. I've forgotten my sneakers. And he's like, just get them when you're here next. The reality of the situation is that I had such anxiety about this man that every time I left his house, I assumed I would never see him again. I always assumed, like, and these are the fucking shoes I like, I don't want to lose the shoes. And I other than like a toothbrush, I left nothing there because I just was so panicked all the time. And it was such a high adrenaline hit to be with him and like not be so anxious, but then all the rest of the time was terrible. Anyways, in the end, this person, it's to make a very long story short, his father was dying, and it was the pandemic, and I wanted to fly to Kentucky with him to see his father. And in an effort to make that more normalized, because he was like, he didn't speak to his father, I was like, you're gonna regret it, like we should just go. And he's like, why do you wanna go meet my father before he dies? And I was like, because I love you. So I said, I love you. We were dating for 9 months. It wasn't like I said this on the third date. It was very normal. We spent a ton of time together. And he said, I don't love you, and I'm never gonna love you. And he's like, I don't even love myself. So because I had such low love confidence, I was really like, I called her and I was like, so what do you think? And she goes, he does not love you, full stop. That's it. What more, like she was like, I can't even have this conversation with you. And so I think it's really important to like understand the difference between those two things, because I certainly didn't, and I still work on that now, but speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so he was so undeserving of you. He
Yeah.
was horrible to her the whole time.
Very handsome. Graced the cover of Men's Health 5 times.
What difference does it make? Anyway. So love confidence is, the way I describe it is just basically your belief in your ability to handle love. Your belief in your ability to find a partner, to make a relationship work. And we don't have to have perfect confidence in anything, but the more love confidence that you have, the easier it is to navigate your entire love journey. But it can be really confusing when somebody has high self-confidence and has, you're like, yeah, I'm great, like, I'm dope, I'm the shit. Like, I have all these things going for me, but still, I don't actually believe that I can have the love that I want. That is a combination that can cause a lot of confusion and a lot of pain in your journey, because you're like, I think I'm amazing, but why is this not happening for me? And so I am, there's a lot about this in the book, but I like to teach people to really look at the ways that you can build your love confidence and be intentional about building it. And that starts though by looking at the things that you're doing that are making it hard for you to feel confident, right? So like if you're dating someone who isn't showing up for you, where you have to make all the effort, where you're in a constant state of anxiety, like how could you feel confident in this situation, right? You can't, right? And so it's a little bit like No Bad Dates, where it's just like, and Ready, Able, Willing, and all these things, where it's just actually accepting the reality of the situation and not sort of like gaslighting yourself into thinking that you know, I have to hang in here and I have to make this work, because if I don't, then I'm never going to meet anyone else.
Yes, I do think that. And in line with gaslighting, I think one of my favorite things that you say is, if it's hysterical, it's historical. So touch on that for a second.
This is not my phrase. Has anybody ever heard that before?
Yeah, have
If it's-
you?
Yes, okay,
Yeah.
I see, yeah. If it's hysterical, it's historical. And it's just because dating and relationships are very triggering, as we all know this, of all of our like deepest seated fears, insecurities, you know, all the things, traumas. And but because we're like really taught in the fairy tale industrial complex in which we live, we're really taught to project onto our partners, and it's like, it's your job to make me happy, and it's on you, and I feel this way because of you, and all of this. And so if it's hysterical, it's historical, it's just a way to remind yourself, like, if you're feeling triggered, it's not that your partner is absolved of what is happening necessarily, but also understand, like, there's something more going on in you that actually does not have anything to do with this person, right? So like when you're feeling that anxiety, for instance, of like, I'm never gonna see this person again, like that's an old feeling that you've had for a long time that you bring to any new relationship. So just recognizing that, it's like, oh, okay, if I want to feel less anxious, I need to actually change this relationship I have with myself and the conversation that I'm having with myself, and not just put it all on the other person to say, it's your job to make sure that I don't feel anxious.
Yeah. So should we open it up for questions and answers? I want to say that, like, obviously I go to her for advice often, and she's like an incredible, but if you have like a scenario you're thinking in your mind that's like something particular to your life that's happening to you, she's incredible at giving advice, and she charges $1 bazillion to clients to do this, and we get her right now for free. So please feel free
Not
to
a
ask
bazillion.
please feel free to ask anything about the book, or anything you want to know more about.
I haven't read the book yet, but going back to flirting, and you mentioned versus a new relationship versus one that you're currently in. Can you talk more about being in a relationship and flirting?
Yes. Ooh. Yes. Thank you so much for asking about flirting, because it really is my favorite topic. So first of all, I think of flirting as something, it's like how you put your intention for romantic interaction into like actual tangible practice, right? And at its root, at its foundation, flirting are words or actions that are designed to make another person feel seen, special, and acknowledged. That's the baseline. And then you can add on to that desirable, and then you can add on to that desired by you specifically, right? So like, for instance, like I can flirt with Corinne and be like, girl, you look amazing, like you look really sexy. So I'm making an effort to make her feel seen, special, acknowledged, desirable, but I'm not necessarily saying, and I want to hit that, right? So there's always like these layers to it. But whether you are just meeting someone for the first time or you are in a long-term relationship, if you are not being intentional about making that other person feel those things, then any chemistry, any connection that you have, it is not going to last for long. Like it's not gonna, like we have to be more of like active co-creators in our relationships, and not just think it's like, oh, set it, forget it. Like we're in the relationship, so now we're just supposed to forever feel this connection and this intimacy and this attraction to each other. But it's like, well, what are you doing to foster that, right? And so, one of the things that I talk about in the book is like there's all these different purposes of flirting. And so, one purpose might be like, I want to make a connection. One purpose might be, I want to have sex with this person. And so just really knowing like, okay, well, what do I want out of this interaction? And then kind of reverse engineering, what does that look like? And I go through like 8 different styles of flirting in the book. And some are more appropriate for some scenarios than others. So, but when you're actually in the relationship, then hopefully all bets are off and you get to play with all of them as much as you want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Go for it.
So it's a horrible topic, but we have to talk about the apps.
Yeah.
They're terrible.